The Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, RMAFC, has launched a review of remuneration packages for political, public and judicial office holders in Nigeria. The move aims to harmonize existing reports and reflect economic realities with a focus on fairness, sustainability and affordability. Chairman of RMAFC's Remuneration Committee, Mohammed Usman, emphasized the importance of the review for strengthening Nigeria's governance framework. The review process, mandated by the 1999 Constitution, involves assessing a variety of perspectives, including stakeholder submissions and global remuneration practices. The Commission has also launched a review of the country's revenue allocation formula, unchanged since 1992, with a new framework expected by the end of 2025. In other news, Nigeria's foreign exchange reserves have reached a new high, surpassing the $41 billion range for the first time in over 44 months. The Central Bank of Nigeria announced this milestone during the week, highlighting a 2.62% increase since July. The reserves, which represent the stock of foreign currencies held by the CBN, serve as a critical buffer for the Naira, debt management, and also economic stability. This growth in reserves is attributed to improved oil revenues, stricter management of foreign exchange inflows, and efforts to curb oil theft. It signals a positive outlook for Nigeria's currency and economic health, with analysts suggesting that the increased reserves will restore investor confidence and support smoother foreign exchange operations. Well, now joining me to discuss this issue is Professor of Strategy, Corporate Governance and Risk Management at the Pan-African University, Professor Franklin Ngwu. Great pleasure to have you on this program to give us your perspectives about all of these issues that I've outlined. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay, but I would like to start, bottom up. So in that regard, I would like to start with the controversial issue of foreign reserves hitting $41 billion. Now, the CBN governor says this is good for the economy. It will help the Naira to become more stable. It will attract more investors. It's a clear indication that the Tinubu administration is doing much better than the previous administration, and that investor confidence will be boosted. But this has become controversial since last week when it was announced. First, how did they arrive at this $41 billion? Chartered accountants, particularly those of the old order, when they can calculate foreign reserves, they tell you that, look, it's the net amount after you have deducted from gross external assets, net liabilities and obligations. Then what is left is what you can call your, reserve. But economics, your colleagues, you are an economist. Yeah, I remember now. They say, no, it's more complex because you have to look at the amount of imports, that you can bring in. You have to look at foreign exchange. You have to look at debt obligations. But the ordinary Nigerian, who is an economist, is asking, what kind of economics is this? You say you are strong externally. You have 41 billion. But at home, there is a lot of fiscal distortion. You are import dependent. You are debt dependent. Revenue to debt ratio is not attractive. Inflation is over 21%. The people are in multidimensional poverty. Isn't what we're dealing with here a paradox in terms of contradictions at the structural level and at the policy level?
I think it depends on how you look at it. That the foreign reserve has gone up to 41 billion on its own, and that is leaving every other thing, is a positive development. However, because foreign reserve is used for a variety of reasons, economic stability, paying your debt obligations, boosting confidence in the economy and all that. So if we look at it from that perspective, you might say, okay, yes, it's positive. But when you now look at it, considering other factors, we are borrowing, we are almost 150, we have close to 150 trillion naira in debt now, which is about 70-something or 90-something billion dollars. As we said, inflation is high, unemployment, insecurity, other so many challenges. You begin to wonder, say, is it really something to celebrate? From an economic point of view, looking at it that investors will say that we're doing X, Y, Z, it's technically good. But when you remember that we've moved from about 40-something trillion to now about 150-something trillion in debt. So if, for instance, you now have a lot of maturities at the center, what they call concentrated maturities at the center, the people that we are owing, asking us to pay and all that, it means that the foreign reserve we have is nothing to write home about. And also, knowing fully that we use foreign reserve for in terms of like import and all that, there's a rule that if your foreign reserve can cover 3 months of your import, that means not too bad. The one we have now can cover above 6 months. But as I said, when you consider it in totality with so many other factors, it's also cause for a better accountability, a better transparency in the way we manage the foreign exchange. People also argue, I remember in 2016, I wrote an article with regards to when there was clamor to devalue Naira. And I was arguing, if Naira is trading at about 100 and something Naira at that time, what kind of devaluation do we really need again to support, to say that Naira is properly devalued? The question is, of course you heard that the foreign exchange has gone up, the reserve has gone up because we have more oil receipts and all that. So the question is, when we receive these oil receipts, we keep it in dollars, and we now give states and local government Naira, and then money circulation will increase. CBN will come back and say, okay, they want to sell treasury bills to more money in circulation and all that. Pressure will be on the Naira again. So I expect CBN to provide more transparency, more accountability with regards to the components of our foreign reserve and also the impacts on the wider economy. Not just to say we have $41 billion as the case may be.
Okay. But some people say that, look, Tinubu's reforms, those reforms are working. And that is the people who should just take it easy. That eventually, if we're patient enough, it will get to the people. Now, can the disjunction between macroeconomics and microeconomics, which is where the people focus upon, they say they don't want to hear about external reserves. External reserves will not be used to build infrastructure anyway. They want the lower end of it. Is it that the people don't understand economics? They are asking for too much.
No, people understand economics and they're asking the right questions. I believe that we need a deeper thinking about Nigeria. And, because what we're doing presently is what I can call reactive governance. So this one happens, we announce, we do it. So we haven't really thought things holistically. So people are asking. So of course, when you keep foreign reserve at 41 billion, they might not be earning the best in terms of return on investment as the case. But of course, when you now bring it back to Nigeria, we have a lot of issues, poverty, infrastructure, as you said. But we live in a global economy that requires the balancing of both the external and the domestic. So on that note, it's important to have some foreign reserve that we'll be using to balance foreign obligations, that we'll be using for import, that we'll be using to stabilize the Naira and all that. But I keep emphasizing that this issue of foreign reserve and our foreign exchange management and the way we give states and local government Naira and now keep dollars, and now later use the dollars to start supporting the Naira, we need a proper re-examination of everything. So ordinary Nigerians asking the questions, we don't want our foreign reserve. We want to see our life improve, we want to see infrastructure improve, we want to see security improve, we want to see unemployment improve. They are very right. It now calls to question the reforms being carried out by this government. Are they working? Are they not working? Do they need rejigging? My own assessment as an economist is that some of the reforms, there's something that they call regulatory impact assessment. It is time to sit back and say, these reforms, are they really working? I remember I have emphasized in other times that the issue of the way they removed the subsidy actually disjointed the economy. It was not the way something's supposed to be done. The way they floated the naira is not even supposed to be the way. So it's important that the government takes responsibility for the way they did certain things. And now acknowledge it and now say, okay, there are some mistakes that we've made. How do we improve going forward? We floated the naira. We are now supporting it with maybe some interventions by the CVN. We now have something that has been removed. Naira, fuel is about 800 or something naira. That's fine. But in terms of the coordination of the whole economy, in terms of the engagement, in terms of the inclusive governance, there's still a lot to be done. And we expect the government to be more serious with regards to governance. There seems to be a shift from governance to politics, which more or less maybe are contributing to these issues of all the different economic variables still in the South, not really improving the way Nigerians want it to improve.
Okay, the same RMAFC has another proposal on the table, namely to review the revenue allocation formula, which they say has not been touched since 1992. Now, revenue allocation formula, federal government gets 52.68, but we understand that where it's actually about 48.1% or so that they get in real terms. The remaining 4% is, reserved and then shared subsequently. 26.72 for state governments, 20.60% for the local councils. Now, the argument is that the states, having been saddled with more responsibilities, and also the local councils, that they deserve a larger share of this revenue formula. But some people are saying, should we give more money to the states? The same states where we see a lot of conspicuous consumption, we see a lot of wastages, leakages, and gross incompetence in some of the states in terms of how they are governed.
People saying that we shouldn't give more money to the states. Are we saying that the federal government is demonstrating more competence, more prudence, more accountability, and more transparency? No, not at all. But if we remember, I think this issue of revenue sharing formula goes to the issue of the structure of governance we have in Nigeria. As I said, we need to rethink deeply about the country and about what we need. Remember that the states, based on some reforms, particularly during the PMB regime, they've moved certain things from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. Issue of power, electricity, and other items. So now that the states have more responsibility, and even traditionally, the states and local government are closer to the grassroots, are closer to the community, are closer to the society. It's expected that they should have more revenue to deal with this thing. My own perspective is that more items should be moved from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. And the revenue to the state should actually significantly increase. The idea of being in Abuja, for example, solid minerals. You are in Abuja and you are trying to dictate what happens in Zamfara, or what happens in Ebonyi, or what happens in Oshobo, or what happens in Wukari. It doesn't work. So the right thing to do is to trim the federal government. Let federal government focus on issues, foreign exchange, foreign relations, defense, and all that. But the state should take over most of these items that the federal government is trying to do. So imagine some weeks back, federal government announced that they're going to spend 140-something billion to build bus terminals. I mean, that's a misplaced. I mean, it doesn't add up. So my own assessment is that states should have more revenue than the federal government, and also local government should have more revenue than as they are receiving now. In India, it's currently about 41%. There is a proposal to move it to 50%.
For the states?
For the states, yes.
How many states they have?
20, about 22 or 20-something.
20-something. Yeah.
So if given our level of poverty, unemployment, and so many other socioeconomic problems, the states should receive more. The federal government should receive less. And we should also rethink this revenue, because at the end of the day, when you have a 50-something% in Abuja, that's even where you see more corruption. That's even where you see more limited accountability, lavish government styles and all that.
But given the reputation of these states and local councils, what kind of guarantees do we need to put in place to ensure that if the states and local councils get more money, that the money will be spent judiciously? Because the bigger issue here is fiscal responsibility and the recklessness of those who govern at the subnational level. We know that the national level, yes, there's recklessness there. fiscal irresponsibility. But how do we make sure that the disease does not further fester at the state levels and the local council levels by giving them more money?
I think the issue of fiscal irresponsibility is not particular to states and local governments.
I just said so.
But what I'm trying to say,
can we guarantee certain things?
Yes, we can do certain things. We can say that we have to give them more money. But this money, as some people have argued, can be tied down to, for example, infrastructure. Can be tied down to areas of human development index, education, health, and all that. And say, this money will be ring-fenced. So once we verify that this money will be used for so this thing, it can be released to them. But the idea of saying, oh, they are irresponsible, they are this, we shouldn't give them more money, there is no guarantee, and we've not verified, we've not confirmed that the federal government is more accountable than the states. So if these resources that we are talking about, it's for Nigerians, it means that we don't have to question their responsibility in terms of how to spend this money. What we have to question, what we have to do and implement is this fiscal responsibility to ensure that they now use this money more prudently and more judiciously for the development of the people. But allowing the federal government to control all this money it doesn't lead Nigeria to a better...
But the politics of it. Okay, how do we hold them accountable? If the state's houses of assembly are in the pockets of the governor, and the local council chairmen are all at best special assistants to the governor, including the chairman of the local council.
Interestingly, Dr. Bati, the best way to hold them accountable is to improve the Electoral Act. Is to ensure that when elections are done, that the elections are free and fair and reflect the wishes of the people. So it means that, and this is controlled by the federal government. If it's done properly, it means that if you, Dr. Bati, is running for governor of Ogun State and rest of, or that, if you don't do well, we vote you out. And if you
it's
know
okay.
that
I'm not looking for anything.
If you know that we know that we're going to vote you out, you will do well. I've also argued that this idea of re-election. So we have things that we can do to improve the fiscal responsibility of the states. So if we agree and say, okay, you're a governor, you will only do 6 years or 5 years. No issue of re-election. And we have clear things that you're supposed to do within that 5 years. I believe that we should be able to improve the management of our resources. But just keep saying that they are irresponsible or they will not manage it well, and we leave the fundamentals the way it is. I think we are not focusing on the right issues.
I see. Okay. Let's now go back to the first topic that I mentioned. The proposal to increase the salaries of political public office holders, governors, legislators. And the argument is that the last time the salaries were reviewed was in 2008. Now, SERAP is saying that no, it will be illegal and unconstitutional and an abuse of mandate for RMAFC to talk about increasing the salaries of political office holders because it will amount to an act of discrimination within the purview of Section 42 of the Constitution of Nigeria, which talks about equality of persons and also non-discrimination. That most Nigerians are suffering. And then you want to go and increase the salaries of public office holders when pensioners cannot get their work, their benefits, when workers cannot get their salary arrears, when in fact those who are in active service are not even receiving salaries as at when due. And then these public office holders who enjoy perks of office, you want to give them more money. Labour Party, PDP, CUPP, NNPP, ADC, they all seem to agree that this is the matter. And SERAP says, if after 7 days, RMAFC does not reverse itself, it will go to court to force the issue. After all, there was a 2021 judgment of the Federal High Court in Abuja, which said the review should be suspended. But now they've gone back to it in 2025.
Are we supposed to review wages from time to time? Yes, we're supposed to.
That's what RMAFC says.
That is normal. However, if you consider the environment, if you consider the current issues, if you consider the cost of living, if you consider the 70,000 minimum wage, if you consider the level of unemployment, insecurity, inflation, you will consider the suggestion or the proposal by from RMAFC as insensitive. So if we look at what is going on, police will complain. As I keep saying, we are governing Nigeria from a reactive approach. Police will complain and say, they say, let's see how we can increase more money to them. Medical doctors will say, we are going on strike. We say, okay, let's give them small money. These people will win sports. You say, okay, let's give them $100,000. So we do things arbitrarily and without proper, deep thinking. So the idea of suggesting that we should increase the salaries of political office holders on its own, given the number of years he has taken, this thing that the president is earning just 1 million naira or 1.5 million naira, ministers and all that, they are valid. But are they sensitive? Are they something that's supposed to do now? Is it a discussion for now? Given the climate that we are living, I don't think so. So I believe that what RMAFC is suggesting is a right thing, but doing it in a wrong time. Because Nigerians are suffering. Poverty is increasing, inflation is increasing. So all the socioeconomic factors, they are not in the right direction. So
you think timing is a problem?
Timing is the problem. So
okay, will it sit better with the Nigerian people if, government decides to just increase everybody's salary? RMAFC for the political officers, National Wages and Salaries Commission yes. for other categories of workers, including cleaners and messengers and everybody. Yes. Would that sit better?
It's not just saying let's increase everybody's salary, because if we increase everybody's salary, we'll return to the same level, because inflation will go up.
No, because Sarah says they are discriminating against the people.
I understand.
So increase everybody's salary. Let us all be on the same page.
No, it will not solve the problem. Okay. That's not the way to go when you're governing. Not when people react, you say, okay, increase everybody, so let everybody receive more money as the case. I think that, first of all, they should disclose all the perks that go to these political office holders. If they travel, if they medical allowance, housing allowance, all of them. And say, I was talking to somebody in a federal university, and he said a professor earns about 500,000 in a month. So, and we're talking about the education sector. The same thing happens in the health sector. So, Nigeria, we need to do proper thinking. This reactive approach to governance, it's not right. It will not take us anywhere. So increasing the salaries now is not right. It's not appropriate, because if I see ministers, I see political office holders, they don't demonstrate, or they don't exhibit, or they don't show they are suffering like ordinary Nigerians. And there's even no suffering in the way they behave, the kind of cars they use, the kind of houses they live, and the way they conduct themselves. So coming out to say, okay, we want to increase the salary of the president, of ministers, of this, is, as I said, is insensitive. It doesn't take into consideration where we are as a country. So what you're supposed to do is that we're supposed to have a systematic way of doing things, of increasing wages, looking at inflation, looking at GDP, looking at productivity, looking at all that. We're not even focusing on the most important thing, Dr. Abati. The most important thing for Nigeria at this point in time is how do we increase our productivity. You discussed the issue of foreign reserve, you discussed the issue of revenue sharing formula. The main issue that we are not discussing is productivity of this country. The foreign reserve went up because oil. If you look at the history of foreign reserves in Nigeria, it always go up when the oil prices go up and falls back when the oil prices fall down. And we've been doing this for the past 40-something years. So the question is, what are the alternative sources what are the alternative sources that will enable us to have higher foreign reserve, higher this, higher this, higher this? One of them is, how do we even attract foreign direct investment into this country? We have not. In the last 1 year...
The president just left Japan. He has gone to Brazil. It's about attracting investment.
Moving from one country to another country, Dr. Abati, is not the only way, or does not justify, or does not even guarantee.
It's a way. They've given us a town in Japan, Kirazuwa.
I understand that.
Sometimes when you don't see me, maybe I'm in Kirazuwa.
Yes, no problem, Dr. Abati.
Which is the Nigerian town in Japan.
But look at it. Last 2024, FDI to Africa increased, even though global FDI declined. So Africa attracted about 90-something billion. However, giant of Africa, Nigeria, we got only 1% of the FDI, of the total FDI, which is about just 1 billion. Interestingly, Egypt got about $40-something billion. So you need to do certain things right. The foundation needs to be right for these things to be coming. But however, surprisingly in Nigeria, all we are just talking about reactive. Police do this one, you do. As to say, you do. This one do, you do. We need more coordinated governance and what I call inclusive governance.
Okay, I get your point. Well, Prof, you were the one who brought professors into the matter. You said something about salaries of professors, that professors don't earn more than 500,000. Well, university professors in Nigeria, under the auspices of ASUU, they say that they are going to go on strike. The federal government has proposed to them a staff support fund, tertiary institution staff support fund, both for university teachers and also for polytechnic teachers, all the teachers within the federal government ambit, as it were. So ASUU says, no, we don't want it. Please go back to the outstanding agreement of 2008 and pay us the outstanding no work, no pay salaries. President Tinubu paid 4 months out of that, but there's still 3.5 months outstanding from the Buhari period, the strike, 8-month strike of 2022 going forward. ASUP also says, no, we don't want any kind of loan. Just settle our 2001 agreement and what we agreed upon. So the argument is about respecting agreement. But the federal government is saying we offer them financial support, tertiary institution support fund. So why are they rejecting a benevolent offer by the president of Nigeria, by the federal government, so to speak?
Dr. Bati, of course, you know, when somebody said that they're going to give you a loan, they're more or less increasing your liabilities. So, of course, the federal government didn't say that they're going to pay them money and say don't pay back. They are saying that we want to give you loan that you can borrow and pay back. But also is saying, given our current state, we already...
There is some kind of cushion.
I understand. It comes back to the issue of proper thinking and governance. So they are telling you, based on what we are paying them, professor is earning 500,000. He can't take us home. I've already been borrowing. So you now want to put more borrowing on me. So what are you? So they are saying, go back to the initial agreement that we had in terms of conditions of service, in terms of so many things. It also goes back to the issue we were talking about Nigeria. So ASUU is saying this reactive governance will not work. It's not sustainable. So if I'm already owing 10 million as a professor, and you now come and say, okay, come and borrow more, it means that my liabilities will increase, which will also increase my problems. So they are talking about the autonomy, conditions of service, remuneration, and all that. So why don't we just do things properly in Nigeria? These discussions have been going on years. I think it started since 2005 or 2009, and they now had this Yahya Ahmed report, which was, I think, 2009. I can't remember. And since that time, it's been back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I was talking to somebody in Abuja, and some civil servants. And the people in labor and employment say that they are very, very busy. You know, people that work in that ministry.
Yeah.
So I now asked them that you're busy. I said, but from my own assessment, I think that you people, nothing. They said that they are very, very busy, that from morning till night, they are busy. I said, what meeting, busy doing what? Doing what? And they said they're always in meeting. Meeting and meeting and meeting and meeting and meeting and meeting. So what are you meeting? He said that they're always resolving one potential strike, one potential issue. And this is what we've been doing in Nigeria. So this idea of ASUU, we stay 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, they threaten strike, they go for a meeting, they discuss, they call off the strike. Before you know it, they come. That's not how to govern a society. I was in the UK. I did my school in the UK. For the over 10 years that I was schooling in the UK, it was only once that they went on 2-day strike. Just 2 days, and things function. And that is why we have confidence to send our kids to UK, because you know that it's stability. But this idea of people will go to school, 4-year course, you end up finishing it in 6 years or 7 years or 8 years, and even if you stay at home for 6 days, for 3 months, all what you've learned will have gone down. So this idea of continuous renegotiation, re-engagement, and before you know it, they come out with a loan and say, okay, come and borrow more money. We've given students, now we are giving the teachers, we're giving the this. It's not the way to do things. if there's been a report, and this committee was set up by the federal government, and they have submitted their report, why don't we say education is too important for the development of this country? So what is in that report, we will implement it. If it was inclusively constituted and inclusively drafted. I mean, what I'm inclusive means there are people from ASUU, people from the government, people from other stakeholders. So if it's been agreed that this is a good report, the right thing to do is for government to say, let's do the right thing. If you look at governance indicators in Nigeria.
Well, you know, in Nigeria, agreements are never respected.
And that is why things are not going well, Dr. Abati.
But I assume that you are not affected by this. You are a professor in a private university. Pan Atlantic University is not one of these problematic universities where they withhold allowances and salaries. I just want to be sure.
It's a private university that has a different governance system that is not the same thing as a public university. But of course, you know, what happens in public university will also have some impacts or some direct or indirect impacts on private universities. But what is important is that education is very, very important, Dr. Abati. One of the key governance indicators in Nigeria is government effectiveness, that in the world. In that area, Nigeria has consistently performed abysmally. So the question is, why is it that we are not effective as a government in terms of bringing about policies and following it through to achieve what we are supposed to achieve? So that's what we are supposed to be focusing on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Franklin Ngwu, for sharing your time with us today here on This Is Live, the Sunday Talk Show.